factors that is affecting a lot of people when it comes to public speaking is the psychological aspect of it. How do you build that sort of level of confidence before you even step up onto a stage? Because people have this issue, or this concern, this constraint, that this preconceived notion of what is called self-doubt. And everybody tuning in, and I'm sure you'll all agree that before stepping up onto a stage, whether it's for an actual formal presentation, you're speaking in front of hundreds of people, or even if it's at a presentation in front of your teammates at work, or your class, or in front of your class during an academic session, everybody has this sort of doubt that I'm going to go on stage and I'm going to have this sort of issue and constraint because I don't know exactly how I'm going to prepare myself or how I'm going to present myself in the best possible manner. And these doubts often occur for a few things. One could be a low level of self-esteem. Another could be a genuine fear, a fear of public speaking itself. So what is it that you need to do to be able to overcome that element of, or that psychological element of a boundary that's stopping you from being confident on stage? And one of the things that I addressed as a speaker, because I've been in the speaking industry for over 13 years, and to overcome doubt and to overcome fear itself, is to improve your relationship with self-doubt. And one of the ways in which that happens is to self-question, and to exactly see exactly where these statements of doubts are actually coming from. What are they? So if you're thinking about stepping up onto a stage and you're immediately telling yourself, I can't do this, I'm nervous, I'm shy, I don't know how the audience will, what they will think of me, you're already putting yourself in a position of vulnerability. And when you do that, when you put yourself in a position of vulnerability, others will look at you and already can sense that you're scared, you're afraid, because your body will give a sense of negativity. Your expressions will give a sense of doubt as well. And when you have been asked to speak on stage, you instantly lose credibility when other people can actually visually see that you're afraid. So one of the ways in which you can actually combat that is actually questioning yourself before you get on stage. Like one thing I do when I go on to, I look at this, I scout the setting. I know exactly where what is. A lot of people like to stand behind the lectern where the mic is, and there was the high, and then they use that as that sort of initial sort of covering. That's where they feel safe. To be fair with you, to be open and to be actually free and have that confidence in speaking, it's about letting yourself go, letting yourself fight that level of vulnerability with expression, with body language. And when I talk about body language, it's not just about keeping yourself tense and hiding behind something. It's about being open and free. And one thing which I found very significant in my approach when it comes to public speaking is when you are somebody who can let yourself go and let yourself be free. What that means is that you are no longer shaking, you are no longer having that sort of tense sort of feeling inside. And you take a deep breath, you're able to analyze everything around you. And all of this I do before even the performance starts. So I know where what is positioned. And if I'm trying to look at people, if I'm trying to observe people in the audience and they all look frightening, they all look scary, the worst thing you can do is actually think of yourself as being that person who is going to suffer, who is going to be challenged by people who are more senior than you, who look like more authoritative figures than you. And it's all a mental state, because the pre-notion of self-doubt is having that consistent sort of statement buzzing around in your head telling you that you are not good enough, that you can't do it, and you are not able to do it. So you're able to fight that, you need to change that, reverse that psychological method into just simple things, an attitude and a behavior and an approach saying that yes, you can do it. What is the worst that could happen? You're going to be somebody who's going to speak on stage with confidence, with authority. And one of the ways is through tone and through pauses. Like if you want to make an important statement, let's say you're going to share an idea, or you've conducted a research on something and you spent the past couple of months working on it, and it's a valuable, insightful research that you're looking to present to a group of people. You're nervous when you're stepping up on stage, but when you think about all the effort, all the hard work, all the time that you've spent in putting this resource together, there's a level of excitement there because you're going to share it with people. This idea, this belief, this foundation that you've created. And when you want to share it with people, you're already building up this level of stamina, that level of confidence inside you. And what we instantly do is we break that when we go on stage, because we already doubting who we are and our own capabilities. And I want you to all to let go of that, because when you hold an asset like your speech, your presentation, which you worked on for some time, and you have a structure in place to be able to present that, what you do is you go on stage and you openly free yourself and let your breathing take its place. You're able to examine everything on stage and you let it free flow. And that's one of the ways I do that. And I think it's a cool way to actually to be able to beat that sort of negativity and fear. And an idea I want to share with you is to be goal driven. When you're presenting on stage, to combat psychological fear is to be somebody who is goal driven, that you're going to go on stage and you need to have an end result. That you don't want to be going on stage for the sake of, yes, I've got 15 minutes. The MC has provided me 15 minutes to go on stage, and I'm going to just fly by this 15 minutes and there is no outcome for me. When you have a goal in mind, a structure, you're goal driven, you know what the outcome will be, you know what you're working towards. And I think that gives you that sort of a positive mentality that, yes, this is how you're going to strive and this is what you're going to do and this is what the outcome is. And you leverage your own vulnerabilities that way, because you don't see the audience as strangers. You see the audience as people who are interested in what you're about to say. They are tuned in, listening to you because you hold some form of credibility. And that's the important thing, because if anybody, if even in a classroom, if some of you are students listening in, if you're in a classroom or if you're working in an organization and your colleagues or your manager has asked you to step up and deliver a presentation, they've asked you because you know something. You have this sort of asset that you can share, and that could be anything, as I say, from research, it can be from training, it can be from knowledge, and asset that you hold. So you have that sort of personality, you have that sort of credibility, and it's your time to step up and actually present that. So a psychological state is down to vulnerability, and if you're able to control your notion of self-doubt, your relationship with self-doubt, by having positive statements constantly buzzing through your head, telling yourself that you can do it, it is possible, that's how you defeat the doubt of public speaking itself. But I think when you look at it away on a much more broader scale, there are many people who are genuinely, yes, they don't doubt their ability to speak on stage, but when they are performing, they don't know what the structure is. And one of the things I write about in my book, and I want to share with you as part of the third pillar, which is looking onto the delivery side, is what's called the structure, the framework. Now, whenever I go on stage, what I do beforehand is I have a framework, I structure, and I want to share two with you. One, which is called the numerical framework. As a public speaker, the numerical framework is an easy to understand and organizational structure that you know you'll have. And just to give you an example of what that is, for me, there's a presentation I deliver called the 7 P's of self-fulfillment. Now, what this does is I know exactly there are 7 points I'm going to make, the 7 P's of self-fulfillment. Already, there's a numerical structure there. I can say these 7 P's in whatever order that I want. There is no chronological format to that. So when you know what you're going to say and what's going to happen at what point, you're already putting yourself in a position that, yes, you're going to go on there and you've already not necessarily memorized, but you know the experience behind it because you've rehearsed beforehand. You've given yourself time to practice. And all of this is so important when you have a structured framework in mind. So that's one framework. The other one is called the chronological framework. And I think it's easy to understand for anybody new into the world of public speaking. So the chronological framework is a timeline. It's a logical process where you can't do the next thing without one occurring before. So it starts from the past, the present, and then goes to the future. So to give you an example of how I've used the chronological framework as a means to build up public speaking in order to have a sort of content created, is that when I looked into my own story, my background, I got into business business very young. I got into investment later on. I wrote a book after that, and I got into public speaking post that. So 4 events occurred, and each tell its own story. So whenever you're creating a sort of content to perform on stage, having a structure that is chronological allows you to know exactly what you're going to say next. And not necessarily in whatever shape or format, it has to follow that sequence. Compared to the numerical framework, what it does is numerical framework, you can say in whatever order you want to say. The chronological is a sequence. And when you have a sequence in mind, that gives you confidence, and that gives you an ability to be able to share ideas, take on board feedback, and actually feel a lot more confident and have that courage to present on stage. And I think one of the issues that few people face when it comes to performing and presenting on stage is not knowing exactly the sort of way to interact with the audience. As much as it is about the pre-performance and all the rehearsals and all the work that you would do beforehand, what I don't want and what I don't like anybody doing is deciding to go on stage and winging it. So what does that mean? Now, I've come across a lot of people who like to be, who say they're good at speaking and who like to present, but they go on stage and what they do, they've not practiced at all, and they think they're just going to make it all count and just make it all land there and then. I'm sorry to say it doesn't work like that, because whenever you decide to wing it, you are almost as vulnerable as not knowing anything when you are stepping up on stage, purely because you just don't know the direction which you're heading towards. You've not done any sort of research on the background of the audience. You've not done any sort of, you don't know the information of the people who are attending, what sort of level of knowledge and idea they already have. So researching the audience gives you enough idea as to exactly how to put together your content before you step up onto a stage. So all of this that I'm sharing with you now is purely the psychological aspect of it, how to have that level of confidence fueled so that you are already fully prepared and energized to go, because you know exactly where you're going and what you're delivering. And I think one of the key methods about the psychology of public speaking is your own personality as well. Because one thing about personalities is that certain individuals have this sort of extrinsic approach. So what is an extrinsic person? An extrinsic person is someone who isn't shy, who isn't necessarily having this doubt. They love people. They love to be around people. There's a group of people and they love to go and share their ideas and things like that. But there are those who are intrinsic, who love solitude, who love to be closed off. And people who love solitude and have that more intrinsic approach, there are 2 types of personalities, but they're great individuals who can actually leverage on public speaking. So to give you an example, intrinsic people, I see myself as an intrinsic person, very closed off. I wouldn't necessarily openly go and say hi, hello to random people, even at an event. So what I like doing, especially at a session, is that when I am the center stage and I deliver my speech, everybody else then knows who I am. And then it's a lot easier for me to say hi, hello to people because they already know who I am and I don't have to reintroduce myself. Whereas an extrinsic person would technically, before an event, go say hi, hello to every single person, get to know them, get to understand them, build a relationship before going on stage. And I think it's about leveraging your own strengths however you feel possible. What the great thing about being intrinsic, if you feel you're somebody who's shy, who doesn't have that level of spark creativity, if you feel you're shy and you feel that you need to keep yourself away, you have a lot more creativity. Reason being is because you give yourself more time. You give yourself more time to think in a closed off space, come up with greater ideas, greater content, and all of this adds unique content, unique weight to the world of public speaking. And performers who are intrinsic, have an intrinsic sort of personality, tend to do a lot better when it comes to having a unique say in their delivery style, the delivery approach. Whereas extrinsic people who pretty much are more likely to wing it because they have that innate sort of confidence already embedded within them. And I think just to go to the next point in terms of how you can actually deliver a solid, sound, structured presentation with confidence on stage. One of the key things that I talk about and I love talking about is that when you are going on stage, and I've seen this especially if I know a lot of you are listening in are from Bangladesh, and having been to Bangladesh a few times and other parts of the world, especially across Asia, one of the biggest issues that we find is that whenever you're invited to speak on stage, whether that's in your class, in your at an event, in your workplace, you will go immediately and you start thanking everybody. You will thank the MC, you will thank all the attendees, all these senior people who have attended. If the Prime Minister is there, you will thank the Prime Minister. If the senior member is there, you have been invited, you have been asked to present. You don't need to thank anybody because the MC has already introduced you. That thank process has already been done. You go on there and you start off. Your opening of your speech is one of the most critical elements to signify how confident or how not confident you are in a presentation. So one of the ways you can open a speech is through making a very bold statement, something that will grab audience attention from the get-go. And one of the ways I do it, and that is often, especially in Asia, quite detrimental to a lot of people and hurts a lot of people or opens their eyes, is I tell them, in today's society, university degrees are deemed worthless. That's my opening statement. And a lot of people in the audience are often graduates. A lot of people are often students studying. So me making that much of a bold statement like that, they're almost to the point of how dare you? You know, they're already tuned in. And the idea behind that is you've grabbed attention from the get-go. And that's exactly what you want to do. You don't want to go up on stage, walking up on stage, and as you're walking up, starting to introduce yourself and saying what you're going to talk about, breaking down the content. You've already lost the audience. That first 7 seconds you have on stage is when it's how you win or lose your audience. So you're opening with a hook that is such as a statement. It allows you to have that level of interest. And when you have that interest, the audience is your oyster. You know exactly how to play with them, what to do, because you made a bold statement. Now back that up. Back that up with your story, your message, whatever it is you've planned for your whether it's in a timeline format, in a chronological format, or in any other format that's been shared. So it just gives you that sort of perspective that this is how you're going to take your audience on a learning journey to beat that, to emphasize why you've made such a statement. And one of the things is that you don't need to talk right away. You know, a lot of people also make that mistake that they go on stage and just to fight that immediate nerve, they start talking straight away. I would say pause. You're walking onto a stage, the audience is probably still clapping or people are still sort of gossiping amongst them. You stand on stage and you have that air of silence. That air of silence at the beginning also paves way for attention. If you don't have an opening statement, because with that air of silence and that moment of pause, people are looking at you. Eyes are at you. And when eyes are at you, they want to know exactly who you are. They want to know what it is you're going to say. And that moment of silence for a couple of seconds is so valuable during a presentation. And I want to, in fact, tell you a bit more about the power of pause, because every time during a performance or presentation, you make an important statement or you provide important research or information, always jump in with a pause. That pause allows them to consume, to digest, allows them to take on, absorb that information you've provided. And I think it's something so crucial, so important that if you don't let them take on board that information and you're going on and speaking so fast to that point where they don't allow them to say anything or hear anything, and you're moving on so fast, speaking at the pace I'm currently speaking at right now, you don't let them take on board that information, and that you already lost your audience. So keeping your audience stay afloat with your presentation, there has to be a sequence, there has to be a moment of pause throughout. And I think what a lot of speakers or a lot of people who are willing to speak or passionate to speak often fail to understand that, yes, as much it is about introducing, as much as it is about getting through your speech, as much as it is about whatever those 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes you've been assigned to give a presentation. The most important, most significant thing is that you're speaking to serve. Your audience is there to listen to you because you have something important to share with them. You don't expect anything in return. A lot of speakers in today's world, whether it's for a sales perspective or whether it's to make money or whatever it is, are going on stage with something to earn from it. in today's world, successful speakers go on stage to serve. You, as a member to serve, as an individual to serve, you have knowledge and information which they could grasp onto. So always keep that in mind. Then the other point I want to just quickly share with you is eye contact. And that's one of the most fearful things that I think you probably or have probably heard somewhere, that to picture the audience naked or the audience in their underpants to overcome fear. Avoid that. You don't need to do that. There are people in the audience who often look sincere, and there are people in the audience who look frightening. To get yourself going, there are people, those who look sincere, focus on them, because that gives you that internal level of confidence to say, actually, I feel comfortable speaking to this person. But that doesn't mean you stay glued to that person alone, because that's the worst thing you could do. Otherwise, it just means that you're just talking to this one person. If you have an audience of 50, 100, 200 people, whatever the size of your audience is, make sure you look at them one at a time. You're making them feel like they're a part of your performance, part of your presentation. And all of this is so important as part of the foundations of what makes a speaker successful and what makes the experience of the audience memorable. Because for them, it's all about knowing what you're going to do and what you're going to say and how you're going to feel and how you're going to make them feel. And all of that is so important. And I think one of the things that a lot of speakers do is often the pace in which they deliver. You've been assigned, let's say, half an hour for a performance, a presentation. Doesn't necessarily mean you stick to that half an hour. When you're preparing your content, one of the easiest things that you can do is, for a 30-minute speech, fill it with 45 minutes worth of content. And we tend to, I know a lot of people, having been to a lot of events in Asia, especially if anybody is a senior here, will know that other senior speakers love to speak behind the mic for God knows how long. And one of the worst things you can do as an individual is to continue going on and on and on. Remember, the audience is who you're serving, not yourself. So keeping that in mind, the shorter your content, the more it's memorable it is, the more punchier it is, the more taglines they take away from that. But that doesn't necessarily mean you strip away everything from your presentation. Go back to how you've prepared it. If you've written it as a script, don't read it word for word. Know exactly what the key points are. And when you're addressing that, input this with stories from personal experiences, because nobody wants to hear information. Nobody wants to hear research. Yes, it's important. It's an important part of your presentation, but what really connects you with the audience is that human touch. You see, everybody has a personal story or something that you've experienced in your life that they can relate to. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're talking about in a leadership position, you're talking about somebody within your working environment. Your manager has not been that great and you've been asked to step up as a leader. And the reason why your manager hasn't been great is because they couldn't understand the emotional level of the other employees in the team. And what you can do is, when you stepped up, you were able to listen to them. You were able to listen and understand their pain points and what makes them tick as a group of people. And so when you're taking on board their feedback, their experience, what did you do to make change? What challenges did you have in actually putting this team together and getting and running the business or running the organization or leading the team differently than your previous manager? That is a story. That tells from a personal experience. Or a moment of failure. If you've experienced a moment of failure in life, but you've gone through hardship, you've gone through struggle, but you've learned to overcome this failure, people want to hear about it because others would relate to you. And when you have a story to tell like that, people would instantly connect, rather than just sharing information, rather than just sharing a PowerPoint presentation, which can look so fancy and be jam-packed with enough content and information. And that's one of another thing. Don't fill it with too much information. Keep it simple. 1 or 2 words on a PowerPoint presentation is more than enough, because they've come to hear you. And to be fair, I don't use PowerPoint. I don't use slides. Everything I say is through live experience, through talk. And if I do bring anything, it'll be my props and visuals on stage, other than the technology that is going to be playing beforehand, because that is now so old school. And that is now the advancement of technology has gone so far that you can find innovative ways in how you want to present, especially to engage and hook in your audience. So that is critical as well. And one thing I want to also share is, there are members of the audience who will often have a go at you, who will have a dig at you. And that doesn't necessarily mean through verbally. You will make a point, which they might not necessarily agree with. And so they raise an eyebrow. And they are the so-called naysayers in any audience. You will have that. So when preparing your speech, try and understand exactly where your loopholes are. In whatever it is you're trying to present, are you left vulnerable? Are you left open to somebody having a go at you, saying that your idea, your research, your theory, your principles are not correct? If there are people like that, then the issue is you've left yourself vulnerable. You've left yourself open. So again, go back to that whole the initial process of when you are preparing to make sure that you don't leave any loopholes. And if you do have loopholes, these will pop up, especially when you see facial expressions of people during your performance, and especially during a Q&A session. So if you have a Q&A session after your presentation, and somebody raised their hand and then they say to you, I don't agree with what you said about point A and point B. What you don't want to do is leave yourself vulnerable. You want to accept and acknowledge that you value and appreciate their opinion, but you don't want to get into a clash with them. A lot of speakers, what they do is tend to be so arrogant and have that ego that they are right and their audience is not. That is the wrong way of going and doing things. So what you need to have in mind is that the relationship between you and your audience has to always remain pure. That remember, you're serving. And as an individual serving your audience, their thoughts, their ideas, their feedback matters to you. You take that on board, you take it on the chin, you thank them. But you also stick by your guns in a way. You also stick by your word and say, yes, you appreciate what they've said, but you also believe your way is correct and this is why. And you back it up with the evidence and the research that you've done to provide that. And I think just to wrap up, as we're coming really close to the end, in terms of how you end and finish your speech, as I mentioned earlier, the opening can be done with a statement. The closing of your speech is one that has to be memorable. Remember, you don't want to be somebody who goes on stage and shares a wonderful story, has gone from story to story, and the audience has either struggled to connect the dots or managed to connect the dots, but you lead them in a way where you don't leave them in that such a, oh, I want more kind of way of feeling. You need to leave them on that sort of cliffhanger, on that sort of suspense. I want you, I need you, and I want more of you. And especially if any of you wants to become a professional speaker, have this sort of intention to become a professional speaker, you need to always leave your audience on the edge, on the cliffhanger, wanting more. So again, leave them with a statement, leave them with an idea, leave them with a principle, or even a quote that you personally believe in, and I think that's a great way to be able to have that buy-in, so that if you want to get booked for an event later on, or if the organizer wants to rebook you for an event, they can do that. And if all of you are just beginners in the world of public speaking, looking to build your confidence in the world of public speaking, statements can be anything from a key aspect of your presentation that you want them to take away. A 15, 20, 30-minute presentation will have a lot of content, a lot of information, but what is that one really important aspect you want them to take away? You want them to remember about you, and you want them to really remember you by. And I think that's the way to best end a presentation, rather than this whole, oh, it's been a pleasure speaking with you all, thank you very much for your time, and saying goodbye and bowing to the audience. You don't want to do that. That is typical. A lot of people do that, and it doesn't leave you memorable. And people just go on to the Q&A or go to the networking session afterwards, and you're just another ordinary speaker. Avoid that and leave them on a cliffhanger. So I hope you found this 30-minute session exciting, and you've taken away one or two points that you can leverage in your session, in whatever level of performance you're doing. And I think whether you're a beginner in public speaking, whether you're somebody who is looking to make money from the world of public speaking, you're looking to turn into a profession, a lifestyle profession, the Build Your Confidence on Stage model that I've created or I'm working on, there's a new book coming out, as I say, in December. If you want to register your interest also for the online course, you can do so through the CoachKamrul Hasan network, or you can do so through the buildyourconfidenceon.com website. But also I have a YouTube channel where every week I post updates with tips and ideas on public speaking, so you can improve. So just go on to youtube.com/buildyourconfidenceonstage, and you'll see all the videos on there on quick tips on public speaking. So I hope that's helped you guys. And if you have any questions, I know there's been a few on the chat box.
Right.
That I'll try and get through as much as possible.
Right. I think before you do that, if you allow me for a couple of minutes to tell the truth, how I actually met you. Is that okay with you, Sabirul?
Yeah, by all means.
Tell the
That's
truth,
a great
right?
Story. Go on.
Yeah, right. I need to tell it because that's how you're here, right? It's in the year 2013. I was actually depressed and working in a bank. I was looking to find how I actually don't work. And then I saw that Sabirul, a young chap, a fellow and coming from UK and in Prathamalo, is having a seminar. So then I actually jump into the program and just to, where to get out of work and find, what's going on there. I went to see Sabirul speaking in 2013 in Prathamalo office, in Prathamalo auditorium. And then I didn't have any clue actually who Sabirul Islam is until that day. And I was watching him speaking. And then in between the speech, he actually asked one question. Everybody, you want to know what the question is? So the question he asked for everybody is, but he didn't want to have the answer. He said, you figure it out, you work it out, what your answer is. And the question looks like this. Do you know how you want to be remembered once you die, once you leave this world? This only one question on the talk actually hooked me forever. And then, oh my goodness, if I die today, I was above 35, 36, something like this. And then, who is going to remember me if I die today? And he said, you don't have to answer. You go back and walk around what it is exactly, why people will remember you. So I thought, okay, I haven't done anything that people is going to remember me. And then that day onward, I started figuring out inside my mind without telling it to Sabirul, unless recently. And then I got my answer, how I want to die. I don't want to die silently. I don't want to leave silently. And had that not been on that very session of Sabirul, probably today, you would not have been heard me speaking because I was not like this. And probably Sabirul could not be here as well, right? And that's the question Sabirul impacted me. It's not, it was the word, at the same time, the way he delivered. It actually pinched to every audience's mind, those who were present into the auditorium, about 500 odd audiences. I think everybody got the attention, the way he actually threw the question, pin drop silence. And that question I got.
I could reframe that question. I could say it in exactly how I, word for word. It was, when you leave this world, what will you be remembered for?
Exactly.
And I think it's a very philosophical question. And it's a way that I wanted people to take away from the event at the moment. And that's how I exactly end it. As I mentioned about a statement, you can also end it with a question. That's the question I left that event. And in fact, that was the moment that at the Prathamalo Auditorium that time was when I delivered the Inspire 1 Million campaign, where it was the session where the 1 millionth person actually participated in the event. So it was a big monumental breakthrough. that to inspire 1 million people around the world, having traveled to 31 countries over a period of 4 years. And Kamrul was one of those individuals in the audience at that time. We've been working together over the past couple of months on getting this platform up and running. So I'm really grateful that Kamrul was there. Otherwise, I would not have met him or known him. And it's an opportunity for me to also speak in front of you all as well.
Thank you so much, Sabirul, for your time and effort. And that question, actually, it was so profound. And you see, I figured out the answer in the next 5 years. And then I left my corporate career, and the things that I'm doing today, I give the full credit to that question. I told Sabirul later on, that's the reason actually I have been able to quit my job and doing the things that I'm doing today. So, and you can understand the impact, somebody can have through speaking, through communicating, and that has become a passion and purpose of mine. And then I thought, why not? The person who actually changed my thought trajectory, why not bringing him as well, to co-create, create, and also for our audiences, for our youths in Bangladesh. And that's why Sabirul, I requested him, and then he agreed to come over here. I'm so glad and so grateful to Sabirul, and also for all of you today for watching and would be watching later on as well. And public speaking, I think, is today is one of the most sought skill that we actually missing as an element for our career. So I hope and welcome everybody to join our next 2 sessions. And then we're actually going to launch a profound courses, actually, that would take you through step-by-step processes where and how you could be actually a profound speaker, and you leave a legacy, you leave your mark in everyone's mind, and that can increase you. Maybe nobody knows, because had I been into the banking career versus what I'm doing today, I think it's a lot more difference. Had I not been encountered on that particular occasion, I could not have traveled to many parts of the world, couldn't have done the things that I'm doing today, living my life. So that's whole credit actually to Sabirul. Thank you, Sabirul, again for that question and that day.
Absolute pleasure, and a thank you to everybody who has attended, and I hope you take away something for that. And if you do want that question to have an impact on you, it's a lot of thought process that goes into it, and I would encourage each and every one of you to actually give it some thought, that when you do leave this world, what will you be remembered for? And it puts you on a pathway to understanding and learning a bit more about your own qualities and what it is you have. We have more of these sessions, public speaking taster class sessions coming up over the next few weeks, so do tune into those, and if you have any questions, you can always fire away, whether it's now or whether it's at another session. I'd be always happy to assist.
Right, maybe one question, if anybody wants to ask you directly, that privilege and chance we can extend if you allow the time. It's already, we are actually stepped up, but one question, Sabirul, is that okay with you?
Hello.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay, sure.
Hello, Assalamualaikum. Hello.
Yeah, go ahead with the question.
Yeah, this is Habib. Hello, Assalamualaikum to Sabirul and Kamrul.
Hi there, Habib.
Hello there. I hope you are doing good. Yeah, during this kind of pandemic session. Well, my question is, so since you are going to tell something sensitive or which can be a great impact to your, this is important to let people know about this kind of things, but this is so sensitive, people cannot accept that the way you want or that you want to say. So how would you like to penetrate inside your people's mind and roam there, and what can be the actual process of articulate all the things, so you can get your stage all yours and make them understand that this is necessary to people, this is necessary to know for them, that you are saying something important there that should be known to you, preach this kind of consciousness through your people. So how would you handle these kind of things?
Because this question relates to the power of vulnerability. Now, the power of vulnerability is a very sensitive issue, not just for you as an individual, not you as a speaker, but to the audience and people listening in, or anybody you connect with. Because every time I'm speaking on stage, I always, not only, as I mentioned earlier, about the evidence and the research that I bring, but I tell personal stories. I tell stories about the times when I especially over the past 15 years of my life, 16 years of my life, where I've been diagnosed with epilepsy, a medical condition. I talk about the challenges that had on me in affecting how I wanted to grow up, the ambitions I had as in my childhood to who I wanted to become, and the restraints and the barriers that I had. And what this does is that people who are actually listening, not everybody will take it to the heart, you know, and not everybody will say that, yeah, this is relevant for me. But there are, even if it is a couple of people in the audience, even if it's just one who takes that on board, you've done your job. You've done your duty to serve. And that's all you're thinking about. As I say, as a speaker, as an individual, to serve a community, to serve an audience, if somebody can connect with you in whatever means possible, that can be through the message you're sharing, through a personal touch, through a story, that can be through whatever information you're sharing with them. It just requires that one individual to connect. And it's not about getting society's approval. And you should avoid fighting for that, because not everybody is entitled to opinion, and then society is different for different communities. Even internally in a country, you have people who believe in one thing and others who believe in something else. So if your way of life and your way of doing things and your way of approach, if it has a sincere approach to it, those who automatically have that magnetic pull are those who will buy into your idea, buy into your ethos. Those are the people you focus on, because far too many people spend way too much time focusing on irrelevant people who don't matter, people just for approval. And I think in our society, you know, especially in Asian, in a Bangladeshi society, we seek approval far more than many think. Oh, what would society think? What would our neighbors think? What would our community think if we do this, if we say this, if we act like this, if we dress like this? Why should we have to believe and follow in all of this? You know, everybody has a character, a personality, a trait. What we don't often do is leverage that to the maximum potential. No two people are the same, you see? So whenever you have an idea, an ambition, a vision, a drive, an energy, a passion, it's going to be so different from the person sitting next to you. That doesn't mean you need to seek their approval. You connect with people who have that sort of similar level of ambition and drive, or people who want to get to that level you are already at. Because people who recognize that they have something worth sharing are already one step ahead of people who don't know anything at all or don't know where they're going, you know? So it's about supporting them, guiding them. And every time I speak on stage, if it's 100 people, 200 people, I'm not seeking approval from all of them. I'm just seeking that one individual who buys into the ethos and the philosophy that I'm sharing. You know, we've had quite a number of people joining in this session. Maybe not everybody agreed with what I said, but does that affect me? No. As long as somebody has taken away 1 point from this session has been successful. And that's the whole idea behind it, to serve. And so it's all about perception, how you picture yourself and how you think has an impact on others. So I hope that answers your question. And please don't go in that process of, as no matter how sensitive a situation is or how vulnerable you think you are, there's always somebody worse off in a situation, a position. So when you, especially in the speaking industry, and I can only speak from that sort of experience and level, that for speakers, their only intention is to be able to make the society better than what it was, to share an idea, an ethos, a principle that can help uplift and educate the audience better than what they already came into. So if you're coming into an event and you know literally 1 or 2 things, you want to let them, you're training them, you're educating them, you want to let them know a few other things. So they have now 3 or 4 things that they can go away with. You see, taking them that one step ahead of where they initially were. And that should be your goal. That should be your idea. And that's how you've served, whether served an audience or whether serving a community. But it's about knowing who these people are. So you need to identify that, and that goes into the background and the research that you do beforehand.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sabirul. I think we got actually a lot of questions, and that's okay. I think we need to hang on a second as well, because next couple of weeks, Sabirul also coming, and do join us because public speaking is an art, right? It's an art and science. And don't expect that you're going to grab all this art and science together in one event. It's over the years and years and years, you got to actually practice with the correct tools, methods, and techniques. So that's, hang on a second. next couple of weeks, we got a free tester sessions as well. And then we are going to offer you the courses as well, which is actually nugget size and also can give you until things are getting normal. Sabirul would be traveling to Bangladesh as well. That's what the original plan was. You are supposed to come in Bangladesh in June, right? But the actual scenarios. So hang on there.
I think the original date was in 2 weeks' time, 2.5 weeks' time.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So hang on there, nurture your hunger and let it grow further, and be with us next 2 weeks and cook a bit, and then once you cook the food, then put it tastier. Don't try to have it without cooking it. Cook it a bit next 2 weeks, and then have a little bit of courses a bit further. Have the rice from pot to your plate. Now the rice is actually on the pot, uncooked. Let it be cooked, and then the little bit of course, have it on your plate. That's what you can digest it. Unless you do, the food is only on the pot and on the cooking. So it's good to be there, but if you really want to have it, you got to have it on your plate. A lot of people do not understand this. The things you want to see, okay, there are things are there, but you got to actually practice it, take it, inculcate it, and then it, right? When you have the food, you get the things, brain, food, and muscle, everything is working. So until next week, I want to thank all of you. Stay with us, be with us, let the food cook a bit. Sabirul.
Thank you, guys, and I'll see you all next week.
Absolutely. Cliffhanger, and stay tuned next week, next Sunday, 9 p.m. with us. Build your confidence on a stage if you really want to mesmerize people for you want to speak. Thank you. Until then, take care, and may God bless you. Stay safe, stay well, and just don't forget to register yourself. On our pinned comments, you got to see our website and links to register your interest, and would reach you with the next schedule as well. Until then, take care and be with us. Every night we're having programs with different dignitaries. Be with us and take away something. We are giving it free to serve the nation. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Sabirul, again, and thanks everybody for jumping into tonight's session. See you tomorrow morning.
Okay, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
All right.
Take care.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Bhaiya.
Okay, thank you.